Hello, hello. Uh, I'm here in the flesh. Okay. I see chat. Tony, bless your heart. Big fans over here. Thank you. Um, Pop something in the chat. Uh, some hi, Jason. Some hellos. Yeah. So let's just start right off with this clone business. Listen, it's me. It's the real deal. Like I hurt, I feel. I'm not a clone. We know how to make clones now, right? But this didn't feel like an appropriate time. So the point of this session, by the way, thank you all for being here. The point of this session is you got a bunch of information thus far, right? Like a bunch of cool ideas and all that. I mean, let's take Lizanis' session right before this as an example. Like, kind of mind-blowing stuff, but if there's something useful we can do in this session, it's probably try to land the plane. Like, what are the questions that we have that are like, how do I actually put this stuff into practice? And maybe the questions that I'm a little bit embarrassed to ask, right? Like, let's work through the hard stuff right here. That's kind of oftentimes those are the best questions to ask. You got questions, pop them into the Q&A. Tosin's going to pop in some of the questions we've had in other sessions. A quick intro, if you and I have not met, my name's Jason Staats. I last ran a 40-person accounting firm in Oregon. The last 2 years, all I've done is thought leadership. So anytime you're at a conference or somebody's speaking at you, I always tell people the two questions you need to ask are, what does that person have to sell me? And why are they the right person to give me that information? Why am I the right person to give you AI information? At this point, I think I have the most watched AI education globally for accountants across YouTube and social media. I helped the AI CPA develop their sort of generative AI toolkit and their strategy for how to lead the profession into this new era. And then second, what do they have to sell you? I don't have anything to sell you. At the end of the day, I'm a spineless social media influencer. So I've got a newsletter and YouTube, all those different things, but you know how that works. Today, we're just like sharing ideas and jamming on cool ways to use AI inside of our firms. So questions you got now, questions you got along the way, pop it into the Q&A. I'm going to dive in with some of the stuff that Tosin has been throwing out. I don't know if there's a way for me to like pull this on screen or if I just read it out. There we go. Oh, bless your heart, Tosin. What's the most practical way firms can start using AI without overwhelming their teams? Here's the thing. Accountants, we are just chronic overthinkers in every way. Like, we got to have a plan. The number of people who tell me, I've been thinking about this and we're working towards this and all that. Gang, we just got to start. Like, this is actually maybe the biggest mistake when it comes to AI adoption in our teams is throwing just the whole textbook at them and overcomplicating things when all we got to do is just start exercising that muscle. Your job, if you're the big boss, you got to define the boundaries to say, here are the okay and the not okay ways to use it. You got to understand security and like what are, the chat GPT plans, for example, that will protect our data responsibly. But then cutting your team loose, like step number one, which is admittedly where most of us are still at. Step number one is just like getting it in their hands. And it's a funny thing, AI, like people kind of fall into one of two camps. There's the people who will sit down in front of a chat GPT for the first time and be like, yes, where has this been all of my life? This is totally going to change things for me. And then there's the other type of person who sits in front of chat GPT and is like, I don't know what to do. Can you just tell me what to put in there? I don't know what to do. For some reason, like everybody falls into one of those two camps. But just getting it into people's hands lets you get started. And then you got to start thinking about like, well, what's a feedback loop where we're sharing ideas week over week? And how do we upskill the folks for whom this is a little like harder to get started? But I always caution folks, like, don't overthink it. The biggest thing most people need to do is just start and make it a daily habit. Look at all these questions. I wish I could read chat. I wish I actually had time. Oh, next question. Is there a best software that we can use that helps with organizing notes, etc., so we can search and find things throughout the year. I feel like I'm on overload finding information in many platforms. Real talk, Angela. I mean, isn't that a problem in all things accounting firm tech? And that, I mean, that's frankly, that's the value of a good practice management system. And I know like something that Financial Census tried to do is what's the tagline y'all always use? Like everything you need to do the work all in one place. And that's like incredibly helpful, but it can be taken further because right now we have things like AI meeting recorders, like our meeting assistants that are recording our meetings. Well, the transcripts are now over here, but I got my practice management system here. I got the accounting ledger here. I got my tax software over here, whole bunch of different siloed pieces of information. And the reality is like, that is a really big pain right now. Um, the one thing I always try to come back to is what are the use cases for AI? Like, what are the scenarios where we need all that information in one place? So, for example, let's say I'm going to use AI to help me with marketing. Specifically for marketing, what does that look like? Is that like drafting a LinkedIn post, drafting tweets, outlining a podcast episode? I try to think of AI more through the lens of what's a process that I need to do on a recurring basis. And for that process, what information do I need? And then, like, how do I get all of that in one place? Because right now, unfortunately, there isn't like a perfect way to get everything into all like one place, all into my chat GPT or all into some AI assistant that can do absolutely everything. So instead, I try to think of it more through the lens of the jobs to be done rather than just this kind of open-ended, like giant data lake sort of thing. Clem, if you could pick one thing to automate in a firm that doesn't feel scarily hard, what would it be? That's a good question. Um, I mean, I think AI meeting assistants are just a total slam dunk. Um, and I know a lot of us are still stuck on like, well, I don't want this thing listening in on my meetings. Or you may have that old timey client that's like, I don't want this conversation to be recorded. Like to which I say, buddy, like if if I can only talk to you on my burner phone, that's probably not a conversation I want to be having to begin with. Um, but I'm unbelievably bullish on AI meeting assistants because having perfect recall is so valuable to have the full transcript of those meetings. Not meeting summaries. I actually don't like meeting summaries because if you're like me, when I think back to a meeting, I'm like, did we talk about that one super super specific thing like were they claiming their daughter on like the odd years or the even years? Or what was the name of that person on their team who was supposed to get us this bit of information? That sort of thing doesn't show up in meeting summaries. What I want is the transcripts of all my meetings. And imagine this is actually a good thought experiment to talk you into to doing this if you're not doing it yet. Imagine if you had transcripts of every meeting you've had for the last decade. Imagine how valuable that would be, how useful that would be for it to be searchable, to be like, okay, here's the 46 times that I've talked with Jim in the last 10 years. And you're trying to remember this thing that he's maybe said or didn't say. And you're like, can I find that? Like right now, we don't have that information, most of us. But like we didn't start 10 years ago. So the second best time to start is now. So being able to capture those meetings, using a platform that will also integrate with your phone system, like that's incredibly powerful. Um, really think through any objections your clients could have and develop like a talk track with your team to be able to say like, okay, help me understand why you are concerned about this. If it is them saying things that they don't want to be on the record, like I don't know that I'd even want to like be party to that conversation. If it is security, then awesome. We can help them to understand how like the leading meeting assistants today are actually extremely secure as any tools that we use in our stack. But if you want an easy win, just capturing those meeting notes, super, super powerful. What's the best use of AI as a solo accountant? Alicia? Oh, from Honolulu. Hi, Alicia. Um, Listen, accountants, we love having like as many monitors as possible. Okay. And I would say the biggest blocker to using AI more throughout our day is just remembering that it's a thing. Like, I push everybody to start with ChatGPT. I think it's just an easy on-ramp to AI. The ChatGPT team plan comes with all the security that I need. So, my recommendation to you, as you got the whole battle station set up, right? Like, I mean, some of you will only have 2 monitors. Like, can you even call yourself an accountant? Some of you will very proudly have like 8 monitors like you're a freaking day trader or something. I guess we've got the new category of accountant now too that has like the 60-inch wraparound ultra mega wide. Instead of parking Twitter or LinkedIn or your email on one of those monitors, all these things that can distract you, instead, park ChatGPT on one of those monitors. So, like, it's looking back at you all day, because the best ways to make use of it oftentimes are like the fiddly little things that come up, or like the email that you get stuck on writing. But I find if you have that thing up all day looking back at you, it can be a really helpful reminder of like, hey, ChatGPT could probably help here. Where do you think most firms are wasting time today that AI could solve easily? I mean, the answer to this one isn't very sexy. Um, I mean, where most of us are solving are wasting time right now is uh, on placating C and D clients. I mean, if you think of all of your clients on the client list, and your A and B clients are just tickled, they're happy. They're happy with what you do for them. They pay you top dollar. And then you got your C and D clients that are the ones that are complaining, where you mark down the bill and then they still complain. The biggest waste of time most of us have is letting those people into our heads, letting C and D clients take up your headspace, waste your time, and get in the way of building the firm that your A and B clients want you to build for them. So the biggest waste of time, honestly, it's more strategic. It's more what the client list looks like, how we get selective about who we serve and who we let take up our headspace. Um, has absolutely nothing to do with AI, and it's not a very sexy answer. It's kind of like the medicine we oftentimes don't want to hear, but that's probably the most realistic answer. Brian, I know many CPA firms are currently outsourcing roles to virtual assistants, particularly in the Philippines. Do you see AI eventually replacing those VAs, or do you think it will enhance their efficiency and productivity? Great question, Brian. Um, I got a way less tactfully worded version of this question on YouTube, because that's just how YouTube comments go. That was like, is AI the boomer version of offshoring? Like it's like this old-fashioned approach, because I think a lot of folks, they think of what bigger firms are doing, really pushing a lot of stuff offshore, and they're like, well, surely AI makes all that go away. Here's why I disagree, is that in the past, automation, it has come for the stuff at the bottom of the value ladder, the bottom of the skill tree, I guess, like the simple tasks. And there's this sort of rote thing that we will uh, continue to parrot, that is, AI will be really helpful with the low value menial tasks that none of us want to do. The reality is, generative AI, like, yes, it helps with that, but it also helps with everything else. In fact, there's a really good argument to make that it helps every bit as much, if not more, with more senior level, like high level stuff. So, 14 months ago, we got a study out of Harvard Business School that benchmarked consultants, like McKinsey consultants, that use AI versus those that don't. And they found that the ones that used AI, like, they were much faster to like draft really good, like, helpful stuff. And there ended up being a really big difference in performance between the two. And what accountants said was, well, that's not what we do. Like, it doesn't understand math and financials. And that's like more high level consultative sort of stuff. That's not what accountants do. My read on that is like, oh, that's actually like more helpful in the advisory context, not in the low level context. Now, my take right now is it's helpful on everything. And I personally had tremendous luck hiring folks offshore. I think, I think we're kind of living on borrowed time. If like, the reality is, this is my take, in 2025, and this, people is a very divisive thing, offshore work, oftentimes because honestly, many of us have been like displaced by offshore work, especially if you look at bigger firms. Um, my take is in my small firm, I'm building both talent pools, like building talent offshore and building talent onshore. Those things are not mutually exclusive. Like, yes, I need people from the beginning onshore that can manage the client, that understand how things are done end to end. But similarly, I know a lot of people that run offshore teams where their most senior technical people are offshore. So oftentimes offshore, our mind projects low level, sort of administrative stuff, unfortunately, because we interface with a lot of offshore people in like customer support types of contexts, right? But in an accounting firm, like they can really do any type of work that onshore folks can do, maybe with the exception of direct client service. So um, the answer I would say is like no, it does not ultimately replace what offshore people do. In fact, put AI in the hands of your offshore people, just like you do your onshore people, and they're going to be capable of like an entirely different level of productivity. Great question. Ryan Doolin from Tulsa. Nice. Is ChatGPT better than Perplexity? I would say they do different jobs. Perplexity is more of a search engine. ChatGPT, it can do some searchy things, but ChatGPT is much more of a Swiss Army knife than Perplexity. So, like Desert Island AI tool, uh, which, if you think about it, really doesn't make any sense. I would buy ChatGPT before I would buy Perplexity. If you don't know, Perplexity is like kind of the leading AI search engine. Cool tool. Tony, Farmington, Connecticut. I love this as connections, or it says locations. Aside from emails and meeting notes, what is the next day-to-day client servicing task you have found ChatGPT most useful for to not only save your accountant's time, but make your firm look soups impressive to your clients? Um, I can tell you one I'm real hot on right now. In fact, bless your heart, anybody who follows me who saw, actually, I think Jake is here. We put out a 30 prompts that you can use with your meeting transcripts that will do all sorts of things. That is like I wrote the prompts, we gave them away, and you can use all of these prompts with your meeting transcripts that are sitting on a shelf gathering dust. And they will do things like harvest marketing ideas from any of these meeting transcripts. Like, give me 10 tweet ideas, give me LinkedIn post ideas. It will harvest follow-ups, like what are some like any follow-up to-dos here? Analyze how I advise. Is there anything that I missed? Develop a short list of like additional reading. If the client wants to go deeper on the things that I talked about, like give me some more resources I can share with them. A lot of like really cool, really creative ways to use AI with our meeting transcripts. I think that's probably the thing that I'm most excited about is not just, and I know you said like not meeting transcripts. I'm very excited about what we can do with transcripts beyond just recall. So like 101 usage of our transcripts is recall. 201 is like, how do we build this stuff into an assistant that helps my junior team? Let's say I got this person on my team that's starting to support clients directly one-on-one, and they get a question from a client and they're not quite sure how to answer it. Surely someone else in the firm has answered a question like this before, right? Like we get a lot of the same questions over and over and over again. How valuable would it be for that team member to be able to go to this AI assistant and be like, "Hey, I got a client ask me about this or that. Can you see if this has come up in conversation before?" And then it takes you to real examples of more senior folks inside of your firm having those conversations with clients. Like, man, if you like hop in the Wayback Machine and you go back to when you were that junior, just in the summer, in the afternoon, half asleep at your desk, just grinding on this thing that you're stuck on, and you're like too ashamed to go ask that person for help because you just asked them for help again like 20 minutes ago. Imagine what a resource this could be for the entire rest of our team to have all of our client advisory meeting transcripts all in one place and have like that be something that anybody in your team can go to get help for, like if they're working with clients. um the thing I'm definitely most excited about right now is what else can we do with transcripts, because in many ways, if you think about like what is the corpus of knowledge of my accounting firm. Like some types of businesses, you build these assets, and these assets are the things that make us money over time, right? In an accounting firm, a professional services firm, the closest thing we have to that is our expertise. Well, what is the embodiment of our expertise? I would say it's all of our meeting transcripts. And historically, we haven't had a way to harness that stuff, to capture it all. Now, we have transcript tools that will capture it all, but then we have large language models that will take your information and do amazing things with it. Like finally, almost productizing the advice that we just give throughout the day, right? Like, and it's no extra work. It's all the meetings that we're already taking and already giving. If we just capture this stuff in a more intentional way, now we can leverage it and do some really cool things with it. Isabel, where should we not of it going wrong? Ready for my hot take? If you just sat through Lizanas's talk, I don't know how I feel about video that's not real, you know? I feel like it's got a bit of a razzle dazzle to it right now. Like, wow, that is really impressive. But I worry that pretty quickly it gets to like, huh, you couldn't have just taken 2 or 3 minutes to make that for me. I think it's probably like stuff like AI video. It's probably creating video in a place where there otherwise wouldn't be any video. So it's like a new additional type of video, and it's going to have like lots of useful applications, I'm sure. But if there's something that I'm not excited about, it is AI like getting involved in the touch points that I have with my clients. Like as you're building out the client experience, the single most important area to invest in and be thinking about is what do the actual touch points look like? Because the client doesn't give a hoot how you make the sausage behind the scenes. And we will pride ourselves on all these technical things and we compare ourselves to what other accountants do. And we're like, well, this is what makes us really good. Meanwhile, the accountant's like, I got no idea, man. I don't know the difference between you and the next person. So like what we should really be investing in is the client experience. And if the client experience is increasingly like AI driven, I think frankly, as cool as AI is, and I love AI stuff, as cool as it is, it's also simultaneously pretty uncool. And as more of our like support experiences and all that are driven by AI, and as everything that we do throughout the day is like talking with an AI assistant and calling an AI assistant and all that, the long-term effect of that will just be a greater hunger for humanity and connection, right? Like I remember one time, these are Warby Parker glasses. I had some sort of issue. Warby Parker, huge company. I called the number on their website, and in less than one ring, it was like, hey, this is Steve from Warby Parker. And I'm like, did I call the wrong number? Like, nope, nobody does that. And I was blown away at that. I was floored at that. I think that, like, we're just going to yearn for that human experience even more. Kind of like coming out of COVID. We're all just going stir crazy in our homes and we're incredibly hungry for in-person experiences, right? I think AI is just going to make us incredibly hungry for more human connection and depth in those conversations. So I think the last place to use AI is probably those touch points and the interactions that you have with your clients. Kim, as employees, should we be worried about our employers capturing our own expertise gained elsewhere and using that to generate revenue outside of our work? That's a great question, Kim. Yeah. So think about, let's take meeting transcripts, for example. Let's say you have somebody that comes and works for you for a year and they're a freaking wizard at like e-com or something like that. Maybe you hire the best e-com advisor in the world, and they come to work for you for a year, and you capture those meeting transcripts while they work for you. If you're the business owner, you want those meeting transcripts, right? Like you want that to enrich your firm and be an asset to your firm. If I'm the employee in that firm, I think like there's part of me that is like, I'm being employed to like deliver this service to my firm in support of their clients. That's what I'm being paid to do. But it kind of almost comes back to the an analogy of like, how do we feel about software companies training their models on our information? Like it's got a little bit of that tied up into it, right? Um, my accounting firm having all of these conversations that I've had and them using that information long after I'm gone. I'll be honest, that's a sticky one. It's not too unlike, video generation models being trained on movies. And it's like, well, did anybody that was involved in that movie agree to them like being able to train models on that stuff? I mean, myself as a highly visible person online, I mean, we're 450 episodes into a video podcast, uh, several hundred, YouTube videos on top of that. You can go to an image generator right now and get a pretty recognizable generation of me. So, like, what does that mean? Like, obviously, I didn't give AI tools permission to do that. I'll be honest, it's a very messy um, thing right now. Like, AI sort of has this original sin element to it where it's like, nobody gave you permission to train your models on all this stuff. But it's also like the biggest, how do you put the toothpaste back in the tube sort of thing we've ever had. Early days Google was the same way, where it was like all of the platforms that were serving up those articles that Google would go out and fetch were like, hey, we used to sell ads on that stuff. Like you don't have permission to just like be the gatekeeper to all of these websites. I don't have that great of an answer for you. I do think it's probably something that merits more conversation. Like, how much data about me is captured? Like, is that inbounds for the firm to have all of my meeting transcripts long after I'm gone? Like, the firm owner's argument is like, well, you're doing that under my employee. Of course, I want to know what you're talking about with my clients. But then, like, the crossing the line thing is like we just saw with the example from Lozanis, where you can create a visual clone of someone. Like, no, like that's mega crossing the line. If Lozanis worked for my firm and he made that clone and then he goes and works somewhere else, like, unless there's some other agreement reached, they're like, no, I shouldn't use his likeness. But what about what he knows? Take the visual likeness, take the voice, the sound, all that stuff away. Is what he knows just as important as and just as valuable? I don't know. That's a sticky one, and it's probably something that merits more conversation. Lacey. Oh, nope, just kidding. Sorry, Lacey. Oh, Lacey's back. I'm really wanting to learn more or to learn how to automate some service delivery. Example, reconciling the tax return to the books and generate the journal entry that will adjust the books to the filed tax return. This is the sort of stuff that's like really good to be kicking the tires on. A lot of the automation headaches inside of accounting are hard because we all use such different systems and get to the same destination in wildly different ways. Like, work paper preparation looks totally different for different firms. Our clients are using all these different systems. Most firms use very different systems. But to go back to like a very concrete example of, say putting like getting to a federal tax trial balance, consider like what are the tools involved in that process? Like, what's the faster version of review, for example, that it could help you do? Think about what are the inputs to that process. Maybe it is the reports out of the accounting system. Maybe it is maybe you provide it with, say, the prior year journal entries, like prior year tax adjustments or something like that. This year, we've gotten huge improvements in AI models, specifically the O3 model, the O4 mini models that you can use inside of ChatGPT are really, really good, much better at following multi-step instructions. But the one thing to always keep in mind with AI is, let's take a checklist, for example. Right now, AI is very, very good at being able to complete a single item on a checklist. But if I give it a 100-item checklist, it's going to do 1, 2, 17, 63, and 84 because it can't do all that stuff. It's not allowed to work on long enough of a time horizon to effectively do all those things. So oftentimes when we think about bigger end-to-end tasks, the better way to pull AI in is to chunk that down into discrete kind of modules, discrete steps, and have it help with this step, and then have it help with that step in a more sequential way. Because right now it can't do a whole bunch of things all at once. And it's actually a great argument for checklists in general and getting more explicit about like, well, what does it look like to review this type of month end close? What does it look like to review a level 1 difficulty month end close versus a level 5 difficulty month end close? Right now, can we use AI to review a level 1? Like the answer is actually right now, yes. If you give, as an example, if you give ChatGPT a copy of a balance sheet, a month end close, and say, run through this balance sheet. You're like a technical reviewer. I'm not interested in commentary on the health of the business. I just want you to identify anything that may look like a technical accounting error. It is very, very good. Like right now, if I jot down a list, and I've done some content on this, doing this exact test with the QuickBooks Online sample company file, which, by the way, the sample file inside of QuickBooks Online, shouldn't it be a bastion of just how good bookkeeping can be? I can tell you it's not. It's like there's like opening balance equity goes from like 5,000 to negative 9,200 like in over 2 months, and it's like, what? How is this the sample file? Anyways, you print off the balance sheet, and I make a little list of like, okay, I've reviewed a million sets of financials. Here are the things that I would dig deeper on, right? Like just kind of doing that skim down the balance sheet. If I put that into ChatGPT, the list that it comes up with right now, and importantly, tell it to order the list in decreasing likelihood of an error, because I want it to put the most likely wrong things first and then decreasing likelihood after that. It will generate a list of points that is identical to what I do. It's like, uh, you know, opening balance equity really shouldn't be touched after the very beginning. Any equity entries probably should have gone to like owner's equity. And it will even break down like how to fix it. Like reviewing a set of financial statements, it's already very good at that right now. So think about, what are the things it's capable of doing? Where could we use that? That probably ought to be a step for my preparers to do before it ever goes across the desk of a senior. And so in the checklist of like the sequence of things that the person in the prep step needs to do on a set of financials, one of those steps ought to be like do an initial review through ChatGPT, because I can tell you it calls out a whole ton of issues that are going across the desks of senior accountants every single day, from like, why is this current liability negative, to why is there a new loan and there's no work paper documentation? Why do we have a long-term liability but nothing in current? Why is there $800 from a new bank account? Like, do we need a copy of the bank statement if that actually is a real new bank account? So I guess chunk it down a little more and like find the ways that it can be part of your team's process. And that's probably the best way to plug it in right now. Chris, every AI solution seems to want to charge a $20 a month subscription fee. With the endless amounts of tools coming out, is there a single platform that will do multiple things well rather than nickel and diming via multiple subscriptions? This is why I send people to ChatGPT. Like there's a new AI flavor of the week every single week. And I was giving a talk in Tampa a couple weeks ago, and guy asked a question that I think we can all relate to. That is like, if we have no idea where things are going to be 24 months from now, how do we make any technology decisions right now? Like, how do you decide what tools you invest in? And I think that's kind of always been a problem. Like any tech that you choose in your accounting firm, you make it based on what that tech looks like right now, but you're kind of hitching your wagon to someone hoping that they continue to progress and get better and better over time, right? So like I need to be convinced, like, I see what financial sense is today, but is there risk that like, what if they're not where I want them to be 24 months from now? And like, that's a very important thing to pay attention to. So like, do you see the people you partner with having conversations about AI, like creating opportunities for you to learn more and building that into the platform? Um, I always come back to ChatGPT because it's the only platform that has been the best or very nearly the best since day one. Right now, it is still for me the single most powerful Swiss Army knife tool. It's like 200 tools in one. And while there are 100 other tools you could potentially be using, if you only used one, maybe besides meeting an AI meeting assistant. Like, I really want everybody to have these two things in their hands: AI meeting assistant and ChatGPT. Um, that's just like, who knows where it is 24 months from now, but they're the only ones that have been like at the top or very near the top from the beginning. Good question. Isabel, how can we get ChatGPT to recommend our firms over others? Now we're talking. Let you in on a secret, Isabel. So I run a podcast. It's called Jason on Firms. It's about 1,500 accounting firms tune into it every single day. We are 450 episodes into it. 400, and that's a lot. And people very reasonably ask, like, what could you even be talking about after 450 episodes? This is, I mean, I think there's plenty to talk about, but the interesting thing is, if you think about my situation, and you could, like, this ought to factor into kind of your marketing strategy and how visible you want to be out in the world. If you think about my situation, if I put more accounting thought leadership out into the world than anybody else, what does the future of large language models look like? It looks a lot like the stuff that I say, which is kind of weird, right? And there's a lot of people that don't like listening to me, and I like, to them, I'm sorry. But large language models are genuinely a product of what is out there. So the advice here, like, is not too different than the advice that's always been out there, which is, the more specific of a person you're going after, the easier it is to win. So if I'm going to carve out, 4 hours or 40 minutes or 4 minutes, whatever it is, to make a video about how to read a balance sheet, I can make a video that's for any business owner about how balance sheets work, or I can make a video that is how to read a balance sheet for beekeepers. And there's a good chance that you're the first person to make a video about how to read a balance sheet for beekeepers. The bar for beekeepers, it's much, much lower than general small business content. So, like, if you want to be found in large language models in the future, the solution is probably specificity. It's, who do you want to find you? Because you have to float to the top of this huge probabilistic model that large language models are, where they roll everything up and they're like, what's the most likely thing I should say here? If I'm speaking to beekeepers, a lot better likelihood that somebody finds me, as opposed to just giving general advice. So, like, find your folks who you want to serve, that you can build a good business around, and make 450 episodes of a podcast. No, you probably shouldn't do that. You have an actual job, unlike me. But, like, figure out who that person is that you want to talk to, and then just be super visible. Have those conversations every day. And the great news is, the large language models will pick that stuff up. How do accountants manage AI fatigue when utilizing automated bookkeeping tools for categorization and reconciling tasks? And what strategies do they implement to maintain accuracy, efficiency in their work? Albert used AI to write this question, and I'm impressed. You've, like, really jumped the shark of this talk. How do you manage AI fatigue? I'll be honest, I don't know that I've experienced AI fatigue in workflows at all. I can tell you where I experience AI fatigue is LinkedIn, just because such a big percentage of posts and comments and all of that are written by AI now. But within our workflows, I don't know. What does AI fatigue look like? I could tell you an annoyance is, one thing that's a great use for transcripts right now is just to extract marketing ideas from them. So we all know, like, we should probably be out there and be visible, not because we necessarily need more work, but because we're always in search of the next better client who will pay us more to do the same work. And those people generally won't find you unless you're out there and they can actually see that you exist. But when we rock up to a new post, like authoring screen on LinkedIn, and you see that blinking cursor, you're like, buddy, I got no idea what to say. It's a great use case for AI, where you chuck in a transcript and you're like, give me, 8 different LinkedIn post ideas from the advice that I gave in this meeting. Because when you're sitting across from a client and they're asking questions, oftentimes that you've heard 100 times before, I mean, you can riff on that stuff until the end of time, right? So why can we not do that when we come to social media? Well, this is where that prompt can kind of make those connections. They're like, well, you talked about this, you talked about that. And you're like, oh yeah, I can talk about that stuff all day long. Um, that like that the need to pull a transcript into ChatGPT and do the same prompt again, like for me to do that every single day, that actually is really annoying. And like from there, I can understand some AI fatigue of having to do that over and over again. I don't want to get like too nerdy, too technical, although you do have some pretty technical content like in this virtual conference, which is great. The next step, like once you are hustling ChatGPT, if you find yourself coming back and doing the exact same workflows like that every single day, like for example, let's say every single meeting that I have, after that meeting, I want to get a few tweet ideas or a few LinkedIn post ideas. There are ways to make that run on autopilot that don't require you going out to my meeting tool, downloading a transcript, going to ChatGPT, remembering what the prompt is. Like there are ways to think beyond chat where you can build an automated workflow with like a Zapier or a Make or something like that that will take that transcript as soon as it pops, as soon as it's ready. It will apply your prompt to it, and it will send you the response in Slack or an email or something like that, and it just runs automatically. Like that's really exciting. That's now embedding AI kind of into your processes and into the infrastructure of your firm. We talked about the example of using AI to review a balance sheet. Like you could do something very similar where you have something watching, folders in your folder structure, and it will grab anything that you drop into there and review it, and send out notes to you in Slack or something like that. When you find the initial cool use cases that you're doing manually in ChatGPT, if you find yourself coming back to them a lot, that's where you start thinking beyond chat, and you start futzing around with Zapier, or probably better for firm owners, you go out and you hire an agency that can help build something like this for you so that it runs automatically and it's not something that you've got to do manually. Mohammed, what's a tech stack you would recommend for a small firm under 20 employees? That's a simple question to answer. No, it's not. What's a tech stack I would recommend? It depends on your service mix. Do you do accounting and tax? Um, Mohammed, it depends on so many things. I mean, can I shill for financial sense? Financial sense, like the goal of my practice management system is like what's a system that will do as much as possible for me. I think financial sense is like kind of redefined what it looks like for small firms to have a tool that can do like any type of work. It's not just tax work, it's not just bookkeeping, like it can kind of handle anything. Always start with your practice management system. Like that's step one. Oftentimes folks like bodge together 100 different things because there's a more systematic, like fundamental issue, like where your practice management system isn't doing enough for you. And so then your tech stack ends up being way more things than it needs to be. But that's, I don't know, to walk through like a full tech stack. Honestly, most accounting firm tech stacks are too many tools and like dependent on a bunch of factors. I don't know, to be able to like riff off the top of my head. I don't know. I think Jake's still walking this. We've got like some I've got an app database, basically over 100 apps. In fact, Jake, if you just want to post the link in chat just to the spreadsheet, like you don't have to give me your email address or anything. We've got a database we put together of like 140 apps for accounting firms, whether I recommend them, whether I don't, and why. Financial Sense is one of my top recommended practice management systems. George George, you're not allowed to ask. Okay. Would you use, and if so, what is the best way to use AI when hiring? Ooh, good question, George. Um, yeah, I mean, within reason. Like we kind of have to be careful here. Um, like filtering stuff out in hiring, usually there's a kind of deterministic way to do this where it's like this people have to have 5 years or more experience. Um, Oftentimes, hopefully your ATS or your applicant tracking system can do some of this stuff for you. But in certain roles, like in my experience, hiring admins, I just got an unbelievable volume of applications. And yes, this is one area where AI can actually like if you give it a sort of brief to say like it needs to have these 5 qualifications, it can absolutely review a resume and score it and say like, here's the likelihood that this is a match versus not a match. You got to be really careful here because I mean, there's examples abound of us giving AI too much of a leash, and it's there being biases in there that we may not be aware of, or it throwing out stuff that just isn't justified. So there probably is very specific ways that you could use that, but I would be super careful in how you approach it. I'm old fashioned and I want to help my partner to create an advanced, futuristic CPA firm, but I feel lack of knowledge. Where can I learn more about this? How can AI help us realistically? Buddy, you're here. You're like, this is step one. I feel like we can get really paralyzed and like feeling inadequate. And we look at all the things that everybody else does and they're showing up and we're like, oh, I'm so far behind. All that matters is what you do next. Like that's literally all that matters. There's so much good information out there. This conference is free for goodness sakes. There's so much good information out there where you can learn. Like you want to learn ChatGPT, like I have a 20-minute video on YouTube that's everything that you need to know about how to use ChatGPT securely. I would say just start. Like figure out how to do it safely, how to do it responsibly, but just start. Because oftentimes the planning, the sitting in talks and all this, it can kind of be a form of procrastination. So like think of what the future, like modern version of yourself and your team looks like. What are the daily tasks that they're doing? How do we start doing that? Like, how do we start acting like those people? And before you know it, like you become something that is much closer to those people. I think that's it. I think we're at time. Gang, thanks for having me.